following is a CUNY TV special presentation.
My name is Whitney Donhauser, and I am the Ronnie Menschel Director here at the Museum of the City of New York. And we are thrilled to have all of you here for In the Halls of Power, Women in the Future of New York Politics. So this is the first in a series of programs inspired by a new exhibition, Beyond Suffrage, A Century of New York Women in Politics. Beyond Suffrage traces women's political activism in New York City from the struggle to win the vote through the 20th century into our own times. We have a dynamic series of programs planned over the next 11 months during the run of the exhibition, exploring how New York women continue to forge new paths and redefine possibilities both inside and outside government, and you'll hear a lot about that tonight. So we are so honored to have a panel of distinguished New York politicians. Speaker of New York City Council, Melissa Mark Viverito, and Museum Council member, New York City Public Advocate, Letitia James, Carol Bellamy, President of New York City's Council and a former New York State Senator, Christine Quinn, former Speaker of the City Council and President and CEO of WIM, Women in Need, with the moderator, Ronnie Eldridge, renowned feminist activist, former City Council member, and the host of Eldridge & Co. on CUNY TV. So it's such a really great pleasure for all of us to have these incredibly influential women here. They've had a huge impact on this institution alone. They've been instrumental in ensuring the success of our 10-year renovation, why it looks so beautiful, and modernization project. And really, regularly, they send representatives to our Board of Trustee meetings. They support so many of our educational programs and exhibitions, and even just stop by to see what's going on and really are dedicated to knowing everything that's happening here. So I thank all of them for their continued enthusiasm, for the work that we do. It means so much to us. And also tonight, I feel it's important for us to talk about party affiliation. You will notice that we have all Democrats here. We did try to include some veteran Republican leaders on the panel, but unfortunately, the ones that we reached out to, Susan Molinari could not come. We'd also reached out to the Republican Party chairwoman, and they were unavailable. So we do think that instead of talking about party politics, that we hope that the conversation will really focus on the bipartisan issue of getting women and keeping women in public office. So I'd like to also give a special thanks to our promotional partners for this evening, which include the National Women's Political Caucus of New York, Barnard College, and many others.
All of these members of the panel are also pioneers because they're all the first. Melissa is the first Latina to be elected to citywide office. Letitia is the first African-American woman to be elected to citywide office. Ms. Quinn is the first woman to have run citywide for mayor, but she also, I think, weren't you? No, I think it was Nadia, but she was the first woman to become the speaker of the council.
And first gay person.
That's right. First gay person. Oh, that's right. The first openly gay person. And Carol Bellamy was the first elected official who was a woman citywide. So my first question is, when you first ran for office, and everybody here ran for another office other than the ones that they were first in, what started you? What gave you the idea to run for office? And who was supporting you, and why did you do it?
So good evening to everybody. You know, and I think you hear a lot as women that you have to be asked to run in a way in order to encourage women to even consider this as a profession or a career, and that happened with me as well. I was also the first Puerto Rican, the first Latina to be elected to represent this district, which is, this museum is in my district. But it was really a mentor that approached me and said, I see potential in you, there's leadership backing in this community, and you should really think about running. And that's when really my eyes got open to the possibility of not only being an agitator on the outside, as an activist I was, but also looking to be able to represent and have a voice for my community within the halls of government. So it really was women stepping up, mentoring me, that said, I want you to consider running, and that's ultimately what it was.
Was it a woman who encouraged you?
Yes, it was a woman.
Naturally.
It was a mentor. I mean, my reality is a little, I'm born and raised in Puerto Rico, and I was in Puerto Rico until I was 18 years old. So I came to New York City and really had to find, my way and understand the scene and understand politics and make connections and meet mentors and, kind of guide my way. And that's what ultimately led me to this neighborhood, and ultimately what led a mentor to ask me to run for office, and I did.
Letitia?
So first, Ronnie, thank you for inviting me to this distinguished panel. I feel out of place. I do.
Give us a break.
No. No, I do. Why? Because I don't think about the first. It means nothing to me. Because it's nothing more than a historical footnote. Because I know a lot of firsts who've done nothing with their positions. And so that means nothing.
It's good for introductions.
It's good for introductions, and it's good for, it's good.
It's a good bridge.
It's
for
good.
the
But you
city.
see, I stand on the shoulders of C. Virginia Fields. I stand on the shoulders of Shirley Chisholm. I stand on the shoulders of Mary Pinkett. So the district, the city council district that I ran in was formerly held by the late Mary Pinkett, who was the first African-American woman in the city council. So the district that I represent, there's a lot of first. Shirley Chisholm, Mary Pinkett. So first means nothing to me. For me, it's really about what you can produce and what you can do. And so I ran, for public advocate because, because there was not much else to do. So.
No, but also you're probably the first woman and probably first person maybe to win outside of the Democratic or Republican ticket, right?
Yeah.
That too.
I ran.
Right. Running.
Thank you for reminding me. Right.
You ran, that's right, you ran for the city council as a surgeon against an incumbent.
No, he wasn't an incumbent. I ran
Oh,
because
he was-
James Davis had been assassinated in City Hall.
You ran the first time and you didn't win.
The first time I ran and I lost.
Right.
I lost by 100 votes.
No, really?
Yeah, it was very close. It was 100 votes, but I don't want to. But anyway, there was a So and then someone put a note under my door, and I don't want to get spiritual, but someone put a note under my door after James Davis was assassinated, and basically said the reason why you lost the first time is because a higher power wanted James to fulfill his dream before he died. And I don't know who put that note under my door, but to this day, it sticks with me. And I ran, and I think, to be honest with you, it was his brother who was running on the Democratic line, and his brother was so special, anybody could have won.
She puts herself down all the time. What's wrong with her?
So you had the example already set, is what you're saying.
I had the example set. I had worked the district. I knew Central Brooklyn like the back of my hand. I worked for a number of elected officials. And more important than that is that I represented a countless number of children in the criminal justice system pro bono in Brooklyn.
Yeah. You were a legal aid attorney and also an assistant attorney general for Brooklyn.
Yes.
So, Ms. Quinn?
So the answer of what inspired me or who inspired me to run, that is kind of embodied in two people, a former council member, Steve DiBrienza, and Ronnie Eldridge. Because when I was in college, I did a lot of organizing. And I thought there was zero merit in being an elected official. What was the point, I used to say, of being one vote when you could be an organizer and affect 10, 50, whatever, hundreds of votes? So I thought it wasn't, good opportunities, economies of scale, so to speak. And then I started doing housing and tenant work in 1989 in the city at the Association for Neighborhood Housing Development, and a lot of that ended up being around funding for groups that prevented tenant evictions at the city council.
You sat in the front row.
And Ronnie and Steve DiBrienza and Ruth. Ruth wasn't in the council at the same time. Ronnie was obviously. But, I saw these elected officials who were not a yay or a nay. They didn't just sit at their desk or not sit at their desks, as the case of Albany at the time, and push a button, yes or no. They were activists. They were more than one vote. And their position gave them a particular strength and bully pulpit. So it was Ronnie and Steve and Ruth who really changed my idea and my vision of what an elected official was.
But we were always fighting.
Yeah, but that's the best kind of a thing.
We were always part of the minority.
Yes, well.
The votes would be 45 to 5.
It's the good old days. You and Sal Albanese and eventually Tom. And
in those days, it was very, very difficult to get
Miriam
anything you
Friedlander.
wanted. What?
Miriam Friedlander.
Miriam Friedlander, yeah. I feel like her these days. Carol?
I first ran in 1972. I was trying to figure out, I'd never been involved in politics at all in my life, ever. Although I did run for student council to get out of going to gym at one point. I was a community developer in Latin America. But I really loved it, and I was saying this when we were talking about there. So I thought I'd like to keep doing that kind of work after Peace Corps was over. And how do you get to do that kind of work? I guess you have to be a lawyer. So I went to law school. I won't go into all of that. Ended up going to a big Wall Street law firm. I was a reformer in Brooklyn. West Brooklyn Independent Democrats, the club, WBID.
I recently saw a bumper sticker or something.
My mother thought it was a radio station, but I ran for president and I got elected because I was the least disliked. It was typical Democratic reformers. I won my first election by 323 votes out of 330,000.
And she served the district in the state senate.
Right.
Along with a colleague, Karen Burstein, who we
Yes,
should talk
I just
about.
one other thing. So I thought,
met
I am the
another
first
reformer.
ever woman in the New York State Senate. I was so excited about this. Then I woke up the next day and found out two others had been elected. It was so discouraging.
But you were defeated the first time around.
Yeah, I ran
In
in
a
2003 against the incumbent at the time, Phil Reed.
Yeah.
And then I ran in 2005 when it was an open seat and won that one, yeah.
So what did it feel like? And two of you ran at the end, I'm not saying at the end of your careers, but at the end of serving, and lost. You ran very big campaigns. What was it that after you lost the first round, you went on and ran?
I grew up in the feminist movement in Puerto Rico and was surrounded not only obviously raised by my mother, but raised by all the women that were part of that feminist movement and very vocal and very opinionated and very much workhorses. And so I said, well, nobody's going to tell me I can't do something, right, as a woman, right? I felt it was the right thing to do. I thought I was running for the right reasons. It may have been naive, but it was something to do. And you don't like to lose. Obviously, you lose. But I wrapped around, and 2 years later, the seat was open, and I just decided to use the experience I had gained from that run, and I was able to get the support and able to really fight like hell. And that night of my victory, I actually, at times the polls closed, I literally was ahead by 16 votes. So that's how close it was. Every vote counts. Literally, there's some races where that is very much true.
That is true. Yeah. And Carol and Chris, it's very painful.
It's horrendous. It's horrendous to lose, right? And if you're going up for a promotion at work and you don't get it, it's horrendous, and somebody else does, it's horrendous to lose. I also believe that women lose harder than men. And I experienced this, and I've heard this from other women. You've even heard Secretary Clinton talk about this. It's a personal loss, right? But I was dogged. And I'll honestly tell you the truth, I still am sometimes, by the people who worked with and for me who were not going to get the next opportunity in their career in a mayor's office and what impact that would have on them and their family. And no matter how many times somebody tells you, you didn't put a gun to their head to support you, and you're not in charge of their career, it eats away at you. And I'm not saying a man wouldn't have some concern or thought of that kind of thing with his staff, but I just think it is much more profound when you're a woman. I also think when you're running, and this could be a woman, it could be LGBT, it could be a person of color, disabled, immigrant, name the group that is the first in the equation, it feels worse. Because you feel somehow you let that entire community down by not breaking that barrier. Now, I'm Irish, so if there's a way to go like deeper and darker and, you know, I will. My wife says my default face is Angela's ashes. So I want to be clear on all of that. For me, what helped turn the corner was about a year after the loss, I got a fellowship at the Kennedy School. And it's at Kennedy School, obviously, at Harvard, but the student body is much more diverse than one might think. And I mentored 6 students when I was there and met with a lot of other students and student groups, et cetera. And what these young people had done, in many cases against tremendous odds, there was a gender questioning man I was mentoring, and he, for 6 weeks, dressed as a woman in the winter in Boston, and then wrote about it. It got put in TimeMagazine.com and NewYorkTimes.com about what that was like even in Boston. So I was really struck there by it didn't matter your age, your position, or the title. The work was what mattered. And that as long as you were able to keep the work going, you'd be okay. That it was all about service, not about title. And I was so blown away by these young people. And then that's what really got me more focused to be back in the game of work and service. Hopefully that'll be elected office again someday, but you know, those decisions of, you know, people say, my friend Emily Gissou always says, people plan and God laugh. If it's supposed to happen, it'll happen, and if not, I'm honored to be running WIN and Women in Need now and helping homeless women and their children, and I'm honored to have worked with the governor before I started at WIN to get a law passed in the state around rape and sexual assault, which the Secretary of Education is now gutting. But that's what, for me, was critical.
3/4 of what you just talked about were people that you got to engage with in the course of your campaign, the people you were concerned about because they didn't get to go on to do some things. I just want to tell you, I think too often the focus is only on the elected official, which is important because we want to get elected, but it's the people who are there helping you, and you're learning from them. It's just great. So
I think generally working in the government, I mean, the best time in my life was working in the mayor's office with John Lindsay and trying. The basic thing is if you've gone into politics because you want to change something or make things better, it's very satisfying, right?
Yes.
And that's what it is. And I think all of the people here did that. That's really why they went into politics. They also have a great sense of humor. Now, once you won your offices, did you like the power? And were you able to use it well? And now that you're coming to the conclusion, you know, you can look back with a sense of with a good feeling.
I mean, listen, it's incredibly humbling. In this city that everybody looks at, you know, we are the center of the world, you know, to some extent. And to have been able to, even been elected to office as a Puerto Riqueña, as bilingual, as bicultural, as someone that, you know, and be here and be able to then take the next step and become Speaker of the City Council is really incredible because you are in a position. It's not just of power, and that to me is not really it. It's about being able to benefit and to be able to be a voice to communities that have been disenfranchised, to sectors of our society that have been disregarded, you know, and trying to create a greater balance in terms of what, you know, who we're serving, that it's not about catering to the 1% or to the moneyed interests, that you want to give a voice to those that have not been asked, you know, what do you think or what would you like and how can government serve you? And so it has been incredible. You know, we have a great city council. I've been proud to lead it in a very collaborative manner with my colleagues, and I'm proud of the legacy I leave. And I'm, you know, transitioning into civic life and very happy with what I believe has been my footprint, you know, and the little grain of sand that I've been able to contribute. And when we talk about criminal justice reform, you know, when we talk about the work regarding immigration and our immigrant communities, of being a validating and embracing city, you know, I've contributed to that, and I can leave very proud of that work, and very humbling to walk in the streets of New York City and how many times I get stopped, particularly by undocumented immigrants, that thank me for being a voice for them. It gets to be very emotional, right? And a time right now when my island is in such need, and it's very painful, and it's been very draining for me. My mother continues to live on the island. To be able to use my platform to amplify the voice of residents, US citizens, who have been disregarded, is really powerful. So it's been an incredible opportunity. I'm really grateful for it, and I believe that, and I'm proud of the work that I've contributed to this city.
I just want to say one thing. They always say that women are very uncomfortable with the concept of power. I don't usually use the term, but I think that and even though you deny the power, I think that you were in a position to do what you wanted to do, and that, I think, is power, right? Okay. Yeah. Letitia.
And something tells me we're not finished with you yet.
We're not finished with who? Oh, I agree.
So like Melissa, I come from humble beginnings. And like Melissa, oftentimes when we step into rooms, the rooms are not representative of our democracy and of the diversity of the city of New York. And so that puts challenges on both she and I, because we, I guess, some people were viewed through the eyes of she representing the Latino community and I representing the African American community, even though we don't necessarily accept that. We represent all of New York City, but we carry that, and I hate to use the term burden, but we do. But this position that I hold, the Office of Public Advocate, has provided for me a platform, again, to provide universal school lunch for children in our public school system so that we can remove the stigma of poverty for all children, and the only requirement is that you have a belly that's growling. I'm so glad the mayor is going to sign into law banning salary history so that we can address the issue of, income inequality, equal pay for equal work. And that's just one tool that we're looking at as we continue to focus on income inequality in the city, because women are paid less than men for basically doing the same job. The issue of reforms within Administration for Children's Services. And I make no apologies for pushing the envelope, for suing the mayor, and for, again, pushing the envelope on issues that I care about, and particularly in vulnerable populations such as disabled children and autistic children. And so I say all of this to say, I don't know if it's power. Again, coming from humble beginnings and seeing what government has done for you, and seeing that there is tremendous need in the city as we travel in all 5 boroughs, that we still have significant pockets of poverty and significant families who are struggling each and every day. And they need a voice. And they've been invisible to far too many. And so if that voice is anyone on this panel today, so be it. I accept it. And I will continue to advocate on their behalf and advocate on behalf of all New Yorkers, because that's what a public advocate is supposed to do.
When I was a kid, my father was a shop steward in his union. He's an electrical worker. And he was home one day, we lived in Glen Cove on Long Island, cutting the lawn, which he did exceedingly poorly. He had grown up in the city, and he was kept waiting for the Parks Department to show up, or we looked like we lived in a vacant lot or something. So I remember the phone rang, and I picked up the phone, and there was a young man on the phone, older than me, but not old, like my father. And he was panicked. And he said, I need Larry. It took me a minute to figure out who Larry was. But, so I ran out and got my father. He came inside, he talked to the kid. He ran upstairs. He put his tough guy clothes on, which the clothes he would have my mother buy before they went on strike, which they did 2 or 3 times when I was a kid. He left, came back, and the bosses had tried to fire that kid because he was new, but they couldn't per the contract, and my father was his shop steward. And to me, that was remarkable. My father had power. He saved a kid's job. He doesn't remember it, but I do clearly. And I think the fact that he doesn't remember it, humble beginnings, an Irish kid in 96th Street during the Depression, which he talks about like he lived in a mansion. He loved it so much, the old neighborhood. But he never would have told you he had power either. But power is important. And power being in the hands of people who will, to the best of their ability, use it well is important, because we see that often people get it who use it in every single solitary way that's bad. So I started as a rank and file member of the council. Then I got to be health committee chair. And I was blown away, beyond anything I ever expected, about how much more you could get done, particularly if you had colleagues who were interested in it, as a chair versus a rank and file member. It was stunning to me. And I have to tell you now, being at WIN, where we have all the support of Melissa and Tish and a lot of other elected officials, you can't pick up the phone and say, this woman needs a shelter. Boom. Well, but my point is that these gals could call up in the positions they're in their open-heartedness, in their concern for homeless people, and get things done much more quickly than CEOs and executive directors can, even if they used to be elected officials. And more people, I don't say this arrogantly, take my calls than other CEOs of groups, because I was an elected official. It's not good or bad, it is. And all of us, as hard as it is, who are women or representatives of historically unrepresented communities, need to work on being more comfortable with that. Because the impact can be game-changing and significant.
Well, for all of you who've taken up yoga to deal with the anxiety of getting up every day and wondering whether we've blown up North Korea, I just take a moment to realize that there is still something really good in politics. Aren't they great? Anyway, these are three powerful women, and I don't have any difficulty saying you've been powerful, you are powerful, and you use your power well. That's all.
So, yeah.
So again, this whole notion of powerful women, it's important for me each and every day to realize that the power that has been given to me can be taken away tomorrow, Election Day. So it's important for me to continue to walk the streets, continue to connect with individuals, continue to focus on the ground, because for me, government represents the ground up and not the top down. And that is so important. And so connecting with people, connecting with the lives of New Yorkers each and every day, for me, that's power.
I have always believed that women are really served differently. I think that women have a different perspective. There is no doubt in my mind, for the disenfranchised, for the people who have the problems, we'll stop at anything to help them. And I think that we're always lucky when we have women elected to office because of what we do. And life is not over. I mean, when I go to Fairway, people still recognize me. Melissa, you did a lot of work on trying to get more women in the city council.
Yeah. When I became speaker, I started sounding the alarm at that point because I saw the trend and I saw where things were going. I was starting to have conversations with some of the county structures, starting to have conversations with some of the unions, people that were going to play a role in electoral politics, and saying, it's not just about being right on the issues. Like, gender does matter. And we have to make gender an issue. And that if you have qualified candidates, and there's a man and there's a woman, and they're qualified, we should be going with the woman. The goal is, right, to get 21 women elected in 2021, when is the next big open seat. There's gonna be so many council members that are term limited. And obviously then all the citywide seats as well. So to really engage and start creating kind of a movement to get there. We want to see the first woman mayor, right? We do want to see the first woman governor.
I just want to say it's time for all of us to organize again. And when you think about it, so think back to Shirley Chisholm, think back to Bella Abzug, think back to Betty Friedan, Gloria Steinem. So we need that again. And you guys can fill that space.
I can't believe here we are in the 21st century, and we are still talking about and defending the right to choose. And there are some individuals who are coming into the city council now who do not believe in the right to choose. Come the new term, if these individuals start questioning and putting forth legislation or resolutions challenging all of the things, all of the rights that we should have as women, I'm going to need you. I'm going to need your support, because there will be hell to pay in the city council.
It's the women who can show that there's a credibility in government. And so it's both organizing, but it's also profiling people like we have up here, because we've got to build an interest in young people again and getting involved in their government.
We need a deep backbench, but we also need women in front of the camera and behind the camera. So I need more lobbyists, more special interest groups, more think tanks.
We need an empowered women's political caucus.
Correct.
All right?
Correct.
Yeah. And I think that maybe we should start it.
It's a real shame that we don't have at least one female city council member running for speaker.
Yes, exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
That's
Questions from the audience.
Hi, my name is Stephanie Jasmine, and I'm from Brooklyn.
Yay, Brooklyn!
Woo! My question is, how would you all recommend someone who's interested in running for office seek out mentorship if they're not currently in the political ecosystem?
Well, there's no greater compliment you can give anyone, man or woman, in my opinion, than to ask for their help. You know, and it may seem like I can't do that, but I think if you were to have sent Tish or Melissa an email to their office and say, I'm looking for a mentor, there will be follow-up. There's no question. Or if you were to see Carol, email me or Carol, there'd be follow-up. Depending on what kind of mentorship you're looking for, it might not be the 4 of us or the 5 of us, but it happens. So one is to ask. In New York, if you're interested in running for office or getting involved, I tell everyone you need to go to or join your community board. Get involved. You don't have to join, but know the people in your local Progressive Democratic Club and join your block association. Block associations are exceedingly powerful and can be fun. And you'll come across people who are mentors.
So can I just say, people come up to me all the time and say, I want to run for office, Tish, I want to run for office. And I say, well, what have you done? They look at me, not much of anything. I just want to run for office. And for me, my response to them is, you need to serve others before you serve yourself. And so before anyone comes to me, I always ask the question, what have you done for someone else? How have you served someone? How have you been a servant? That for me is key, and that to me demonstrates to me your, your passion for public service, because it really can be very humbling from times.
I just want to build. I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to say also, like, obviously asking, but, inserting yourself in volunteer opportunities where you can expand your network, meet other women, ask for the mentorship, ask to sit with them and share their experiences. But being out there at events and helping organize events or putting yourself in volunteer opportunities just to really expand your circle, and you're also serving others, as you're indicating.
And get involved in issues. And then,
exactly.
Yes, so that you've got a basis to advocate and to put you up there to do
Because
something.
that's the second question. I agree with Tish on the first question. And then the second question would be, what do you care about? Yeah. And if you don't have an answer, if there's no issue that's keeping you up at night, that's a bad sign. Yeah.
Thank you.
No, I agree with all of that, but I think sometimes people are too narrow in thinking about what they've done, and they just want to. If it didn't have something to do with politics, then I guess I don't have a capacity to run for office. Yeah. Think broadly about things that you've done, because you may have done things in which you actually served others, or you fought for something, or you were an advocate, or you were really engaged. I totally agree about getting involved at the local level, but think broadly. Don't put yourself in little boxes.
So this is me always arguing. This is
Good
me
point.
arguing with myself because I'm a lawyer. So I think about, a man, and would we ask the same of a man? Right, I hear you out there. So most men, when they run for office, it's usually someone who's just asking them, and perhaps I am setting too high a bar for women, right? Yes? Okay, I got you. I heard you. Stop.
Well, but chances are, Letitia, if it's a man, they've belonged to a local political club.
No,
or
in
they've
some
got
cases they just wake
contact.
up and they just.
Is there another question?
Hi, Janet Barbash and from Chelsea. And I wanted to comment on something. They said people that have lost and will run again. Yeah. How about you, Miss Quinn, running again?
No wonder you wanted to call. I didn't know she was going to ask that. Right now, yeah, I made a commitment to win, and it's really an amazing job. I'm so grateful to have, and if I get to be an elected official again, I'll be a better one from having been in an agency that serves the city and is regulated by the city. I hope so someday, but who knows? And either way, I want to keep doing things where, I get to serve and have fun. Because that's one of the things I think when I ran for mayor, I didn't have fun.
Somebody in the back.
I'm Amy Schwartz. I'm with the Women's City Club of New York. We've been around 101 years. We are in the display upstairs. We're a great progressive organization, and I have a question for you that is statewide. And this goes just for everybody who's voting. And that concerns, what is your opinion about the Constitutional Convention? We, the Women's City Club, is opposing it because of our concern for the hard-fought progressive values and programs such as reproductive rights and access to education, funded education, and we're concerned that's in jeopardy should the convention go forward.
I completely agree with you. I'm no on the Constitutional Convention. I understand why some people might see it as an opportunity to make some forward steps on choice and stuff, but opening up the state constitution in that way, for me, seems many more opportunities to lose than win. I would urge everyone to oppose the Constitutional Convention.
Carol, I'm interested in Carol. What do you think?
I'm going to use an international. Can I? I've been involved in international stuff for the last 25 years or so. And in the 90s, there were a whole series of meetings around the world. They're known by their cities where they were. Cairo is known as the population meeting. Beijing is known as the women's meeting. And there were Copenhagen was social services. Rio was the environment. And there were great agendas adopted. They were incredible. They were forward-looking. They were progressive-looking. They were incredible. And then started a process of 5-year and 10-year reviews. And every time these 5-year and 10-year reviews came up, the worst elements got involved. And it was as though you had a drawer full of jewels, and they kept taking jewels away, and taking jewels away, and taking more. And so these great agendas got thinner and thinner and thinner and thinner. And I think that I will use that as an analogy for this con that you can give all this glorious stuff, but when all is said and done, it gets manipulated by the worst factors. That's my view.
And I think obviously with the influence of money these days, and we've seen, in other states, I believe there have been, efforts to control, the opening up of the state constitutions and all that stuff, and trying to figure it out. But this is a problem that there are elements that would be very well funded, that could bring up campaigns, and that could also try to influence a process and erode, what we do have in place. So there's serious concerns, and I haven't been really focused on it, but I know just in terms of my initial gut feeling, and then I usually go back and research and really validate it. But it's the issue of eroding what is there and weakening things that we do have. So there's a real chance of that happening. So I'm very concerned about that too.
I oppose it because there's just too much at risk. Too much at risk as it relates to, 1, universal public education, 2, immigrant rights. Right now, undocumented immigrants have a wide range of rights. For instance, the ability to go to a public hospital and be served. That could possibly be jeopardized. And 3, the reason why I oppose it is because of a statute which basically says we have a responsibility and a duty to serve low-income individuals in the city of New York. Lastly, the right to representation in criminal court. There's a wide range of issues. There's just too much at stake. But last but not least, even if you don't care about any of those issues, the last constitutional convention that we held cost taxpayers millions and millions and millions of dollars and did not result in change. And the third reason why I oppose it is because I believe in representative government. And although we have a dysfunctional state Senate, I say let's put the Senate back in Democratic hands, and that's the way we can move forward a progressive agenda.
I haven't really decided how I'm going to vote because I feel it's an incredibly wonderful organizing tool for us in New York State. We have had nothing that really interest people to participate. A lot of us don't vote. The local elections are nothing. We're a Democratic state overwhelmingly. And it bothers me that we're afraid of other people. So that may be a little too idealistic, and I don't know how I'm going to vote when I get to the polls. I think it's going to be defeated overwhelmingly because nobody has projected another view that has caught on. But I think that we need change in Albany. We need change in this state. And we need to activate the voting public. And we don't do it all the time. So that's why.
Can I just say
that's
this?
The other side.
I think, again, there's just too much at risk. And I think we can organize around a couple of things. The one issue that I know you are concerned about, and I'm sure all of you in this room, and that is voter suppression laws, which continue to exist in New York State. We need automatic registration, same-day registration. I understand that, and that's why we should organize a campaign, again, to push the Republican-led Senate or remove the IDC, and make sure the Democrats control the Senate and move these bills. I mean, 14% turnout for the primary is just like embarrassing. Yeah, it is. And the reason why it is because, people just limiting it to one day from 6 to 9 is just really unacceptable, and not using technology in the 21st century.
To vote in next year's primary, you've already missed the deadline.
You've already missed the deadline.
How many of you have heard of the IDC? Because that's something that should have very concerted effort to defeat or change these people's minds. They should be shamed into
Ronnie,
doing this.
it seems like half folks do. Maybe give a quick Reader's Digest on what it is.
I'm sorry, what?
So it seems like only about half of the
Yeah, I
folks.
know. I'm sorry.
No,
All
do you
right.
want to explain what the IDC is?
No. You want to? It's a group of Democrats who've made a separate deal with the Speaker, with the Republicans in the state Senate, and they're Democrats. They're elected as Democrats, and they vote with the Republicans, thus denying the Democrats the majority, which they really have.
Exactly.
That's what it is. All right. Who else?
And denying a woman of color the ability to lead the Democratic conference, but that's a whole other conversation.
Yeah. Yes.
My name is Marnie Halassa. I'm running for City Council District 3, and the Green Party mentored me. So my question to you is, for independents and third parties, and we're growing, what opportunities are there for women that are part of independents and third parties? Because actually when I called Eleanor's Legacy and Emily's List, they sort of shunned me because I'm not a Democrat.
Emily's List, their mission is to elect pro-choice Democrats. So it's not really, I'm not saying you may think that's wrong, but that's what they do. Eleanor's Legacy, I don't know if they're specific for party or not. I'm just not sure. They're all Democrats. Okay. So it's kind of I'm not decreasing your question, but it's a little bit different. Tish got elected to the council on a Working Families Party line, and all of the Democratic leaders had supported Jeffrey Davis. So that was really a significant moment, not just for Tish, but for third parties in the city of New York, which I just want to, make note of.
Well, now what's interesting is the Daily News article, Governor Cuomo actually did a shout out to the Green Party, so I was like, yay.
Lots of good luck to you. Thank you. Is there another question? Yes.
And thank you all for being the role models that you are for the girls here in the city. So, I have 28,000 girls who are ready to get in this pipeline. And, I really appreciate the 21 in 21 efforts, but looking at this long-term strategy, what are we doing, and now with our newfound caucus that I think we all just signed up for, what are we doing to really invest in partnerships for youth organizations to make sure that we are looking at long-term strategies on this issue?
So one of the things I think that's important, right, because as nonprofits, people have only so much political latitude, but is I think we have to be very clear in our youth groups and our recreation, et cetera, about how the groups are teaching, leading, guiding, right? Because there's many studies done that even when a woman is the teacher, the boys get called on more, right? So if it's a gender-specific group, that's different. But I think we can't just assume that having young girls be part of groups is going to give them that same sense of power and oomph. So that's one thing, is to really look at what the curricula is and how we're using it. Two is, I would say, to groups that are out there who, have so many young girls they're working with, and this may seem naive, but ask former elected civic leaders, big institution leaders to come and be, with the girls and spend time with them. I'll just give you a different but similar example. Last year, Indra Nooyi, the international president of PepsiCo, who's an immigrant, one of the top five most important business people in the country, she spent an hour and a half with WIN mothers talking about workplace matters, and they were all the same. So things like that on a different, and none of those mothers have been the same since, in a good way. So try to do that more with girls too.
Can I just ask you, how many of you were taught civics or had a class when you were in public school in civics? I had them.
We were younger, yeah.
What? When you were
back in the dark ages, they taught civics.
I had the most wonderful seventh grade civics teacher, and I met Eleanor Roosevelt, everything else, through our club, and that's what I don't know why that's not brought back into the curriculum.
I went to parochial school, but even our parish school on Long Island, I graduated from grade school in '80. We had that. It was tragically a Republican Congress member who came in, but nonetheless.
I don't remember. I can't, to be honest, I can't remember what the structure was. I went to high school and school in Puerto Rico, so it was different. But the issue, like when I came to New York, one of the organizations I worked for was a youth leadership development organization called Aspira of New York. And one of the elements that we had there was that we used to do the mock assemblies and the mock Senate, stuff whenever we would have the Hispanic Legislative Conference, the Somos Conference in Albany. These kids would go through a training process for several months where they would learn what the assembly session is like, the role of the assembly, what does it do, all that stuff. And then they modeled it, right? They were the members of the assembly, and they would sit in the chamber, and they would do the bills and understand how all that works. I think that's really important to integrate it, whether that kind of a program or whether it is more like engaged civics education. Not only the public schools, that's obviously important, but also the nonprofits that really want to teach that or really ingrain that in our young people about that sense of responsibility and giving back. But those kinds of programs are really critical. We do have one that's kind of at the city council level that we do with CUNY.
That's right.
But I think that we just, have to be more amplified.
I just want one thing.
Sure.
The City University has an excellent program where people they go to courses and then they intern in Albany, New York, and Washington.
There's all these civic groups, like I'm sitting here thinking Girls Be Heard is a fabulous organization. Black Girls Rock is a fabulous organization. Google does these wonderful organizations teaching girls to code and all about STEM and girls who code. So there are wonderful, fabulous organizations. And, I want to thank the speaker. Whenever there is a class that comes to the city council, I chair the city council, I always invite the young ladies up to sit in the big chair so that they can get comfortable and used to power. And so if you have any young girls who want to come down to the city council, come down because I put them to work. And again, all of us who are on this panel are available to speak to young girls. I enjoy that. That's what's so great about being a public official.
Okay. We're coming to an end of our program. Can we take one more question?
It's actually not a question, it's just a statement. My name is Sharon Nelson, and I'm the President Emeritus of the Women's Political Caucus of New York City. And we are co-sponsoring this event tonight with the museum as one of them. Anyway, I just wanted to mention that the caucus is a nonpartisan organization, and we actually do have a class at CUNY where we're training women how to run for office. Enrollment starts in January. Anybody who wants to know more about it can see me after.
Well, I host a program on the CUNY channel, CUNY television channel, and we have different issues that we discuss a lot, and then I get correspondence and also people who just want to find out more about what they can do to further some of the causes we talk about.
I have tons and tons of interns, which is why the Office of Public Advocate, as of today, we have resolved over 30,000 constituent complaints in the city of New York, and I need more.
I thank the panel and thank all of you for listening to us.
But I just tell them cut me up and get down. They call us dirty cause we break all your rules down. And we just came to act a fool.
different people. Add us to the equation, but they never make us equal. She who makes the movie writes the script and the sequel. So why ain't the stealing of my rights made illegal?
Shark it one good time, electric lady.
She walk in and even have you raising up your antennas. She can fly you straight to the moon and to the ghettos.
We're about to break a whole new nation of a million electric ladies.